Good evening and welcome to the Charles River Conservancy Parkland show. My name is Renata von Schorner and we are going to talk tonight about the history of the river, the history of the Parklands. And you might have seen the show that was on this topic a while ago, and if you have missed it, you can go and catch it on YouTube. And again, we have the great luck tonight to have with us Bill Marchione, a retired professor of history, a very active member of the Allston Brighton Historical Society and of the Boston Landmarks Commission, a historian by trade, by training, by passion, and he continues to interview people for oral history. So we're delighted to have you back.
It's my pleasure, Renata. It's nice to be back.
So we also, I want to give you a sense of what area we're talking about, and the map that we have here shows the area that we cover tonight in terms of the history from the Boston Harbor up to Allston, Brighton, and a little bit beyond that. And I want to also thank the Boston Foundation for sponsoring those programs. They make it possible that we can do these programs. But before we jump into the history and kind of pick up of where we were in the Back Bay and so on, I just want to show 3 pictures of the books you've done and that are available in bookstores. Is that correct?
Correct.
They're all available in the bookstores. There's the book, The Charles, A River Transformed, which is all exclusively about the Charles, a wonderful book with wonderful pictures. And then you did 2 books recently, Boston Miscellany and Allston Brighton in Transition, and both these books have chapters contain material.
Some material on the Charles River.
So now let's jump in to 1840, the Boston Back Bay, and tell us, let's pick up the story of what happened here when they developed the Back Bay.
Well, the first step in the development of the Back Bay, which we talked about last time, was the building of the Mill Dam Road, which was the first highway that ran directly west out of Boston. And then the second step came in the mid-1830s with the construction of 2 railroads. That's
what we see here in the picture.
That's what we see in this slide. That converged, one from the southwest, the Boston Providence Railroad, and the other due west, the Boston and Worcester. Mm-hmm. They converged in the Back Bay. And then the next phase, and the most intense phase in the development of the Back Bay, was the filling, the actual filling of the Back Bay that created close to 600 acres of additional ground in Boston.
So where this train was, there was really water, the Charles River as we know it today on one side, and the Back Bay, the water of the bay on the other side. So there was water on both sides. And it's about runs where Store Drive would run today. Is that approximately?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the fill on the gravel that was used in the filling of the Back Bay, and this was a long process. It began in 1857 and it wasn't completed until 1882. So it was a 25-year-long process.
Longer than the Big Dig.
Correct.
Yes. And I think we have a picture of it, of the loading of the carriages to fill the Back Bay.
These trains were equipped with specially designed cars called tip cars, and they were run into the Back Bay at the height of the filling operation, essentially on an hourly basis. As I said, it still took 25 years to complete the process.
And I recall reading that it took about 1 day to fill one house lot. Does that
I believe,
correspond with your?
Yeah, I've read that. Yeah, I've seen that statistic.
So every day a new house in the Back Bay it was filled in to build.
Correct.
Amazing operation. And then of course all these buildings like the MFA and the Boston Public Library coming to the Back Bay.
Well, there was a migration of institutions into the Back Bay. There was, of course, a residential migration. The downtown had become an increasingly noisy and congested place. It was becoming increasingly commercial. So Bostonians had been going out to more distant suburbs, but with the filling of the Back Bay, they had an opportunity to live close to the downtown in a new residential neighborhood, a very high-style residential neighborhood. But also institutions migrated, and in this particular slide, we see the Boston Public Library to the right and the original home of the Museum of Fine Arts, which sat on the site of the Copley Plaza Hotel. And many other institutions also migrated out to the Back Bay. MIT had its original home there. The Harvard Medical School was located on Boylston Street. Eventually BU moved into that building. The Massachusetts Normal Arts School, which was Mass Art, the original home of Mass Art, was in the Back Bay. Churches, the leading churches of Boston moved into the Back Bay.
We have Trinity Church here,
right.
And we remember that there was a problem with the foundations of Trinity Church because it's built in a bay on wooden pillars.
Correct.
So it's on soft ground, which is a big challenge. Yes.
And this building is considered to be one of the 10 greatest architectural landmarks in the United States. So this is an extraordinary building. H.H. Richardson was this. I'm sure you know the designer. So this is a great. A wonderful building to have in that section of the city of Boston.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the river, to where MGH is, adjacent to what today is the West End, and this is really where Charles Bank was going to be built.
Correct. Well, the point that I'd like to make here is that before the river was dammed, while it was still a tidal estuary, there were improvements made along the margin of the river, and the Charles Bank was one such improvement. And this was a 10-acre park that was created on the design of Frederick Law Olmsted, primarily for the residents of the inner city, the poorer neighborhoods of the city, such as the West End and Charlestown in the North End.
A real social innovation as well as a great landscape. So it was an amazingly daring move at the time. You also brought the picture of how the Back Bay looked like in 1892, of how the shore of the Charles River looked like.
A very unattractive area, actually. This is a Child Hassam painting done in 1892, and it shows Back Street. This area backed up to these handsome townhouses, and yet it was an unattractive area.
And it was very smelly, of course.
Yes, because the river was polluted.
Really sewage.
At that point, seriously so.